We've all heard the quote, "You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with." Problem is, most people misunderstand this idea. You hear it and think it's about being around like motivated or successful people, or getting away from people who complain all the time. On a deeper level, it has very little to do with encouragement and almost nothing to do with advice. It's about what your nervous system learns to expect based on who you spend your time around, because that is what actually runs your behavior. You see this all the time. You work really close with somebody long enough and you start picking up their lingo, their mannerisms, even their habits without trying to. But that's also why you can feel disciplined and focused in one season of your life and then feel flat or unmotivated in another without knowing why. The question becomes, why does this happen in the first place? To understand that, you got to understand how the brain actually works. I've said this before, but your brain is not designed to make you better. It's designed to keep things predictable. That's its main function, because from the brain's perspective, predictability means safety. Safety means lower energy use, and lower energy use just means survival. This is why your body resists change even when you want it. It's unfamiliar right now. And so instead of asking what would help you grow, your nervous system is constantly learning one thing: what usually happens in this environment. Now, when I say environment, I'm really talking about the people that you spend the most time with. They're the ones that your nervous system is watching and learning from. Despite what we think about the quote, just surround yourself with better people, it's not necessarily that simple, because your brain's not learning from just advice or conversations. It's learning through repetition. Over time, your brain starts sorting the behavior of your environment. It learns what gets accepted in that group, what gets corrected in that group, and what gets ignored in that group. And those 3 signals give your nervous system enough information to determine how to operate within that group. Think about any group that you've been a part of for a long time. It could be friends, it could be family, it could be work, whatever, okay? Y'all didn't just sit down one day and have a meeting about how things are done, right? You learned it by watching, subconsciously. What happens when somebody shows up late to work? Do they immediately get called out, or does nothing happen? Based on that, your nervous system learns if being on time and taking accountability is taken seriously at that job. What about when somebody is dishonest in your friend group? Do y'all accept it, or do you shut it down immediately and they're ostracized? Whatever the answer is, that's going to teach your nervous system whether honesty matters or keeping things comfortable matters more. I say all that to say this: your subconscious learns from reactions in each group that you're in. It learns what's acceptable and what's not. Over time, this turns into prediction. So when you step into an environment, your body already knows how much effort is expected. It knows what's tolerated. It knows what's not tolerated. And that's why the same person can feel driven in one setting and drained in another setting. Nothing about their discipline changed. Their nervous system just learned what to expect in that environment. Once your nervous system learns how a group works, the people in that group are what keep it that way. Think about how you act around different people. There are some people who you won't say shit or around, right? There are other people who don't want to hear your gossip. They've trained your nervous system to act in certain ways. There are other people who you're completely able to relax around, right? You say what you think. You don't feel the need to explain yourself. Nobody told you to do that. Your body just figured it out. In the first example, your nervous system learned that using that language, it creates friction in that group. In the second example, where you're comfortable, your nervous system learned that you can be yourself without paying a social cost. So you adjusted automatically. It wasn't even a conscious decision. You didn't decide to change who you were. Your body just learned what version of you caused the least friction. And this is how people become nervous system trainers. Most of the time, they don't even know that they're doing it. Me, for example, people have always felt comfortable coming to me for like guidance or advice or whatever, because they know I'm non-judgmental. I'm willing to tell my own mistakes and shortcomings. I don't try to position myself above them. Their nervous system is relaxed around me because they know they're not going to be shamed or corrected or whatever just for being honest. And that shows you what it looks like from the other side of the dynamic, right? Sometimes you're the person that other people relax around. Sometimes you're the one adjusting yourself, and most people never realize which role they're playing. They just feel tired or constrained. Either way, the same process is happening. Over time, that little, that quiet adjustment becomes your personality. And if you don't choose the people you're around intentionally, your nervous system will keep adapting to whoever you spend the most time with by default. When you start changing, you're not just changing habits. You're changing how you actually fit inside a group that already learned who you were. And groups notice that. This becomes the moment where people decide how much friction they're willing to tolerate for who they're becoming. Now, let me explain what that looks like in real life, okay? Let's say you start taking your health seriously, right? You stop eating bullshit. You stop drinking. You get on a workout routine and you start leaving earlier when you're out so that you can prioritize your sleep. Nobody tells you not to, but you start hearing stuff, right? You start hearing things like, you're really on that health kick now, or I liked it more when you were drinking. Your nervous system notices that and it remembers that cost emotionally, okay? So the next time you think about leaving early or not drinking, you hesitate because you remember what it cost socially last time. Or take work. You start taking your job seriously. You start raising your standards, you start showing up earlier. Now you're a brown noser, right? Or, man, you think you're better than everybody. Your nervous system learns that when you push for more for yourself in that environment, it's gonna come with isolation. When that happens, some people eventually go back to the status quo, right? They lower their standards back so that they can fit in again. From the outside, it looks like you lost your drive or you lost your discipline, but really, your body just chose relief instead of friction. And relief always feels good in the moment until it becomes regret. And this will show up in your family too. Let's say you start speaking more about how certain behaviors have made you feel. You stop trying to smooth things over. You say what's actually bothering you. And then the conversation gets uncomfortable, and then you hear, let's not do this right now. So next time, you go back to the role that keeps things calm, and you once again swallow what's bothering you, just because that's what's familiar. And this is why growth always feels lonely before it feels rewarding. You're not fully aligned with who you used to be anymore, but you're not surrounded by people who match who you're becoming yet. And so there's this gap between who you were and who you're becoming. And your nervous system doesn't like that distance, right? It doesn't like that space. And so it keeps pulling you back to whatever eases the tension the fastest. And that's where you see people when they start strong and then they quietly kind of just fade out. Because for them, everything feels easier again. And that's also why people stop believing it when people say they're gonna change, or they're gonna start working out, or start dieting, or stop drinking, or whatever. Because their nervous system has seen the pattern too many times. They've watched people start, struggle, and then slide back. So words stop carrying weight. Only behavior does. People don't doubt your intentions, they just doubt your follow through. And if you don't consciously push through the season where things are awkward or misaligned or lonely, your nervous system is always gonna pull you back to what it already knows, because familiarity feels safer than growth. And that's how years pass in people's lives without anything really changing. That's why surrounding yourself with the right people matters at this level, because it reduces the cost of becoming who you're trying to be. When growth doesn't create tension, your nervous system stops fighting it. When discipline is normal, consistency becomes easier. That's the difference. And that's why the people you surround yourself with determine how far your nervous system will let you go. People think that they can't stay consistent because they lack motivation. They think they need to want it more. They think they need another speech or another podcast or something. But motivation is temporary. It's emotional. Your nervous system doesn't operate on emotion. It operates on what feels normal. And your body will defend whatever feels normal, even if it's not the best for you. Motivation isn't useless. It works in the beginning. It'll get you started. But once it wears off, you're left with just your environment, who you're around, what gets reinforced, what gets tolerated, what feels expected. Motivation can't override that. Think about it. You can be super motivated to work out or eat better or build something, but if the people around you don't work out, they drink, they complain, or they avoid responsibility, your nervous system is going to feel that friction immediately. Now, you're not just doing the hard thing, you're doing the hard thing alone. And isolation makes even strong motivation unsustainable because your body is constantly fighting the environment that you're in. And this is why some people seem disciplined without talking about it. They don't rely on motivation. They're surrounded by people where training is normal, follow through is expected, standards are high. In that environment, discipline is normal. It doesn't feel impressive. It's ordinary. And your nervous system doesn't resist what feels ordinary. This is also why motivation feels useless when you step back into an environment that hasn't changed. You can do all the shit to improve. The plan, the podcasts, everything. You can genuinely want to be better and be motivated to do so, but then you walk back into that same environment with the same people doing the same shit and giving the same reactions that trained your old behavior. Now, you trying to be better is met with friction again. If you don't drink, you stand out. If you leave early, it feels awkward. If you raise your standards, you feel like you're being judged. That gung-ho motivation is gonna wear off again because your nervous system starts to respond to the fact that your environment is still asking for the old version of you. That's why environment beats motivation. Motivation starts the change. Your environment determines whether it survives. And until the environment supports the behavior, your nervous system will keep pulling you back to what feels familiar. Whether you choose it or not, your nervous system is always adapting to the people you spend the most time around. Now, the only real question is whether that adaptation is intentional or accidental. Let me tell you what, the right people, let me tell you what that actually means. It doesn't mean people that just hype you up, right? It doesn't mean people that agree with everything that you do. It means people who don't punish the version of you you're trying to become. People who don't make discipline awkward. People who don't require you to explain yourself every time you do something that's different. If you constantly have to explain yourself, that environment is already costing you. You can explain yourself all day and people still respond to what you repeatedly do. The way that I've learned how to change your environment without blowing it up or being dramatic or whatever is proximity, time, and repetition. Who you spend the most hours with, where your routines happen, what behavior gets repeated without friction. That's what your nervous system actually responds to. Sometimes that means you don't stop seeing certain people, you just stop giving them front row seats to your life, okay? You don't need to announce it. You don't need to justify it. You just move the center of gravity. More time around people who live at the standard that you want and less time in rooms where growth creates tension. Sometimes the environment changes before the people do. You start training earlier. You leave a little sooner. You stop over explaining. You stop negotiating with yourself in rooms who don't support who you're becoming. And those small shifts, they send a signal, not just to other people, to your nervous system. It starts learning that this version of you is not a threat anymore. And this is also why real change doesn't feel like this huge thing once it sticks. The environment you tolerate becomes a standard your nervous system enforces. It stops feeling like effort. It stops feeling like resistance. It starts feeling normal. And, that's not because you suddenly became disciplined. It's because your environment stopped fighting you. So, if there's one thing to take from this, it's this. You settle into the level of your environment. And until your environment supports the version of you you're trying to build, your nervous system will keep pulling you back to what it already knows. Choose the people, choose the rooms, choose the standards you live around intentionally, because the people you surround yourself with don't just influence you. They decide what version of you feels safe enough to sustain. Choose accordingly.